guys. This is one coping that people don't really talk about. So when we talk about investment, sometimes we so much focus on some specific countries and so much pressure on very advanced countries like the US. We look at China and some of those what power economy as places where we can invest in. But sometimes we could actually get better return on our investment in other countries too, or as good as what we could get in the US. But US still remain the dominant market. I do encourage people because there's no any economy like the US for sure. But there are potential in other places too, whereby I see a lot of growth potentials, return on investment, and many. Now, imagine if you have invested in companies in Nigeria, for example. You could imagine when you mentioned that people will like Nigeria. So, of course, it's Nigerian. There are a political um, lot of political situations there that you may have already heard of or that you may know of, but there are also economic potential, not just Nigeria, I would say the entire Africa continent, except for some few countries where there's a significant unrest. But of course, these countries are developing, and I would say the next economic power of the world is going to be in Africa. So it is something that's worth considering today because tomorrow might be too late. I was listening to this Bloomberg interview, and I'm going to pray it for you to listen. It's going to take about a couple of minutes, and I think this is, we'll actually look for the shorter version of this. We just basically talk about that quickly, and then I'm also going to pray another one that may show some potential. I know explaining this might not really be so easy, but doing some research and understanding how the economy there works is very important. But I see a lot of potential that is actually coming that people don't really pay attention to. So I'm going to play this video. It's going to be about 3 minutes, and then we will move on from there.
Aliko Dangote, Africa's richest person. He's built a $20 billion oil refinery in Nigeria, bigger than any in Europe. But critics are questioning whether his dominance will truly benefit the nation or mainly enrich himself as he seeks to ban foreign competition. Joining us now for more on today's Bloomberg Big Take is Paul Burkhart, one of the authors of that story. Paul, talk to us about who Dangote is and really what we need to know about how he became so wealthy.
Sure. Aliko Dangote is an industrialist, really. We compared him to John D. Rockefeller. He comes from a tradition, he comes from a family that traded, his great-grandfather traded peanuts and other goods to Britain. And then he made his own way, just trading cocoa, cotton. He got into cement and then these other really materials that are essential in Africa, industrializing and rising. So that drew his interest in oil refining, and he put in a bid on a couple of state refineries. Ended up falling through because of controversy and public outcry, but it really planted the seed for his interest in that, and he would go on to design and build this $20 billion mega refinery, 650,000 barrels a day. So that's where we are right now.
And Paul, depending on who you speak to, everyone has a comment on Dangote. Do you think he is controversial? Is that a fair classification of him?
It's a difficult. It really does depend on when you look at some of the concessions and tax breaks, that sort of thing that he gets from government to build what he builds and to do what he does. Some of that may seem to some people may seem generous. On the other side, this is infrastructure that otherwise may not be built at all. And Nigeria is really on a quest to refine its own oil because it's been sending crude abroad to come back as fuel, and that's been quite costly. So Dangote's refinery is the solution, and that really, he's managed to do it, but there have been things along the way that have been questioned. And of course, when he does anything, he does it on a very large scale, and he's bound to step on toes. His relationship with the government is also quite complicated and kind of mercurial, where sometimes he seems to be pitted against them and against the import of fuel, and on the other hand, President Bola Tinubu recently called him a visionary, and in some ways, he did realize this vision of Nigeria refining its own crude. So that has to be said. Quite costly. So
I find this to be quite interesting commentary from Bloomberg. And the fact is that the commentator here tends to be very honest about the situation of this particular individual, which you may consider as industrialist. He has been in business even before I was born. And the economic environment where he runs his business in is potentially a buoyant economic environment, but very compressed one to navigate. And for such individual that has been able to navigate those political and cultural complexities to successfully establish a well-known brand in that continent and around the world, I see it as a significant economic leadership that has the potential to actually manage investments and have a high return on that investment. So I see this as going to be one of the giant Africa company over time. And as Africa continues to be an emerging economy, and Nigeria is not that cheap. It's actually a very expensive country, if you like. With the current stock prices I see for these companies, I believe that they are undervalued. If the political situation remains peaceful in years to come, which has been in the past years, peaceful in the sense that there has been democratic transition of government from time to time. I can't remember last time they had a military government, so they have relatively been stable. So that creates a potential for economic growth, and that would create an opportunity for high return on investment. And buying these shares from this company is not really that very complex. But again, if I were to look at it from an investor point of view, I won't put all my eggs in this basket, but I will see it as a proxy to my investment. I'll put some money there confidently, but to the extent to which I can afford to lose without derailing all my investment. And that is because of the political environment precisely. But given the history that since 2000 or thereabouts, this country has over 20 years or so, has been democratically led by elected leaders, gives me some kind of impression. And the fact that this company is actually expanding beyond just a single country in Africa to other Africa countries is also a great potential of what I'll look at. Because if the investment in Nigeria, for so many reasons, is unsuccessful, or there are some unrest issues there, there's a kind of backup for this company to operate in other countries and still be able to secure some reasonable level of return on investment. I'm just going to have this other video so we just have an idea about the company's plans for expansion.
Listening to Aliko Dangote here, it is not just leadership at our level, it's also leadership at the level of our business people. It would have been easier for Aliko Dangote to do trade of oil. I remember speaking to President Olusegun Obasanjo, and he told me he had a meeting with Aliko here. And Aliko told him, if you don't change the policies here, it is easier for me to import oil cheaper, I make more money, sell, than to refine oil, unless you make the right policy decisions. And that is what Aliko is telling us here, that the private sector and us will invest in the refinery. And by the way, we are discussing a refinery in Tanzania.
The two of you?
Yes, we are not discussing a refinery in Kenya or Uganda. We are discussing that we're going to have a joint refinery in Tanga. to benefit all of us, because that refinery is going to take on board the oil from DRC, the oil from Kenya, the oil from South Sudan, the oil from Uganda, and we will just need to build a short pipeline from Tanga to Mombasa, and the finished product will use the pipeline that we already jointly own with Uganda. So all our assets become profitable.
My commitment today here is that if we agree with the 3-4 governments here about the refinery, we will lead and will make sure that that refinery is built within the next 4 or 5 years.
So here's what I have in terms of the vision that this company has. If they could do it successful in Nigeria, they could do it anywhere, because Nigeria, if you have ever done any business there, is quite a difficult environment to run a business. And if you have done it in Nigeria, I would say you will face less difficulty in some other countries. And if you are looking at East Africa precisely, they have more favorable policies when it comes to industrialization than some countries in West Africa. And therefore, there's a lot of potential that I could see with this company. So investing in this company, I'll say it as a yes decision rather than a no decision. And there's a lot of potential return on investment that I could anticipate from this company. There are a lot of apps you could buy shares from this company, such as is it Bamboo? They use Bamboo in that country, and some other. In fact, I think the Nigeria Stock Exchange also has their own app. But you have to carefully research. Don't just go online and download any app. Make sure you research carefully that you are downloading the right app or the correct app to invest in this company in the correct way. And if you are not sure, don't just take those risks. The problem is that you could see some of the fictitious or unreliable apps that are developing or coming up as app to invest in. I could confidently tell you to use Robinhood to invest in a company in the US, but in the case of Nigeria, I have to meticulously review the app to make sure that the system I'm using is the reliable one and is also secure enough to protect my investments. So I hope you find this video useful. Oftentimes, high risk, high return comes with high risk, and it's always good for you to take a very cautious steps and undertake some basic research and critical thinking, and also get people to guide you. Seek information from people you trust. If you know of any U.S. Nigeria trade relationship, you can contact that center to guide you through on how to invest in this company. That will probably be my best bet, rather than just to go online and download app. But I see a lot of potential coming from Africa, and it's definitely a region that I'll go for when it comes to business, when it comes to investment and even business operation.